Welcome back to Sincerely Self podcast. I'm very excited for the conversation that our guest is going to be able to bring us today because he is a trauma focused psychiatrist and also the creator of The White Butterfly. We are joined by Dr. Hector today. Dr. Hector, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, I am so excited. We were kind of running over some ideas before we started recording, and I just know this conversation is going to be so healing for so many people. So, before we dive in, Hector, give us a little bit about you and kind of what led you from being a photographer into being a psychiatrist.
Yeah, so it's really funny. So I was a fashion photographer here in Miami for I want to say about like 8 years or a little bit more. And I did that right after I graduated, just my undergrad, and I had a bachelor's in chemistry. And at that point, I was like, I don't think I want to go to medical school. I'm an artsy person, and like I wonder if that was just something my parents put in me to be a doctor and all that stuff, right? Um, Being a Hispanic, that's they always want their kids to be a doctor and a lawyer.
Mhm.
So I was like, no, let me venture off into my art side, right? So I did fashion photography and I loved it. But one of the things that I noticed that I would do is in the few minutes leading up or preparing the model for the photo shoot, I like to spend time talking to them, getting to know them, getting to see where they're coming from, because it allowed me to be a better director in the shoot. When you're directing someone to, even if they're a model for many years, you still need to kind of direct them to do certain things and give them the feeling of confidence. That was always a thing that I try to do. So it led to like really good long conversations. I mean, most of these models will come to the photo shoot from partying the night before. Sometimes they didn't even sleep. They came from the club straight to the photo shoot. It was that
Yeah.
kind of lifestyle, right? So
Mhm.
I would spend a lot of time talking to them and a lot of time also advising them on like substance use. I had no idea, I think at the time what I was talking about, but I felt that I was helping them and be like, hey, I think this lifestyle is not good for you. You're 19, you're 22, like you're a baby, right? So it kind of led there. And then I remember I was in a photo shoot where I was like, I think I'm done with this. Like, I think I need to do something a little bit more meaningful. Not that that wasn't meaningful. I mean, I love art and I still do. But I just felt that I needed to dive more into that. So I thought maybe
Yeah.
I should be a psychologist, right? I was like, maybe I should just do like therapy and stuff like that. But I really fell in love at that time with women's health and how the female brain operates, right? I don't know, for some reason I was very intrigued. So I went to medical school, and then little by little, it kind of took me to psychiatry without me really planning for it. I always wanted to do OBGYN because I wanted to do women's health. That was like my
Mhm.
thing. I love hormones and management of all of that. I thought it was really fascinating. But psychiatry just kind of creeped up. And then I did that. I went to residency. I was like, this is perfect. It all kind of connects all the stuff that even I was doing as a photographer. And I still today work mainly with female patients. And I love it. I use a lot of tools that I learned even as a photographer, which is how to understand the person from a different perspective and not appear as just like your white coat, cold doctor that a lot of the times they train us to be. Um,
Mhm.
I think I was very approachable and I just kept sharpening that tool because it was part of who I am and my personality. And it just became easy for me. And I really fell in love with helping the individual down to their core, down to their soul. So that's kind of like the trajectory. Maybe it was a little.
Yeah, the path that it led you. I love that because most of the guests I've had on here are doing something completely different. And then they just feel right when they're doing something like how you were talking to these models. You just felt like that was fulfilling for you. It was like fulfilling your soul in a way. And I love that you've been drawn to help women because I think women's mental health is so understudied and so under talked about in a way. And so the way that you're able to, study it and help so many women is so amazing.
Yeah, no, I love it. I I have this thing where I tell my patients, I'm like, you're not too much, you're not over the top, you're not dramatic, you're not any of
Mhm.
these things. Your brain is behaving in a certain way that is putting you in this fight or flight mode. So then to other
Yeah.
people, you might be like, okay, you're too much. because there's a lot of factors that go into that feeling that this person is having in that moment or the words
Hmm.
that are coming out of their mouth. People don't think how our brain is like the puppeteer. And if our brain is not healthy, we're gonna just do and say either the first thing that comes out of my mind that might be insulting without stepping a few like taking a few seconds to like let me reevaluate what I'm about to say. Most of us
Yeah.
work in our limbic system, so we tend to be very quick to respond or to, and sometimes that gets a lot of us into trouble. So I try to teach like, okay, let's use our second brain, which is more slow, more cognitive. Like, let me think of what I'm going to say and how I'm going to say it, which can change the whole either interaction or the trajectory of that other person, depending on what you tell them. So I focus a lot on that with my patients.
Yeah, I love how you mentioned the fight or flight because I think so many women and just so many people in general are stuck in that fight or flight and showing up that way in conversations, like you were saying, being very impulsive with what we're saying. For our listeners who are maybe thinking, am I stuck in that? Like, how do I find out if I am? What would you say are some indicators to that your body is telling you that you might be stuck in fight or flight?
One easy one to know and look for is just body tension. There's certain parts of your body that are more prone to be just tense,
Hmm.
especially the shoulder region, the back of the neck, the hips. So these are areas that tend to just be really tense. Um, if you notice that that's always happening, and sometimes it's seen with like pain, or it's just seen as like you're just shrugging the entire time, right? And that's just okay.
Hmm.
Okay, let's let it go, right? Another one
Yeah.
is always breathing through your mouth. Um, you need to breathe through your nose. And it sounds like
Yeah.
that's basic, Dr. Hector. Like, what are you talking about? But when you're always like this kind of like breathing through your mouth and almost hyperventilating, people don't realize that you're not getting oxygen to your brain, for example.
Yeah.
So if you just like slow down and start purposefully like breathing through your nose and out through your mouth as you're talking, take breaks to breathe. Like people really don't do that. So that's a sign that the person is in this fight or flight mode. The other one is the one you mentioned, just being really quick and impulsive to answer. And if the answers are always what we call like kind of like worst case scenario answers. So like, you ask me like, hey, how was your day? I don't even think twice. I'm like, oh, it was a piece of crap. It was Okay, wait, hold on.
Hmm.
Was it the whole day that? Or did you have a moment in your day that was, yeah, maybe like shitty, like it was bad? Like you can't say the whole day was like that. So if we have that mindset of like just kind of always looking for like worst case scenario, and it's not necessarily just being negative or positive, it's not just that. It's literally looking for like worst case scenario moments and just fixate on that.
Hmm.
Those are some of the things that I look for. Oh, and obviously the big one is poor sleep. And sleep could be just off. Like, a lot of my patients tell me, well, I sleep. Yeah, but how is your energy in the day? Oh, I'm always like super slow and like just foggy. You have brain fatigue.
Hmm.
So then you're just constantly overthinking that you're tired the entire day. And you probably physically didn't do anything. Does that make sense? So it's like
Yeah.
those are some of the things that I immediately look for. So if someone is having some of these, I would say really get checked and get evaluated to see what could be what's causing that. Because those tends to be like the product of something.
Hmm. I
Something.
love that you mentioned that because I think all of those symptoms I was thinking on social media are normalized. Like everyone's like, I feel that way too. It's fine. When really it's like a warning sign, like you were saying, it's something that you need to be like, okay, I need to go and get this checked out and not let it just be normalized and become desensitized to it.
Yeah, I think, I mean, social media has a lot of positive things.
Hmm.
I'll be honest with you, I don't think it's social.
Yeah, true.
Social media is not social.
Hmm.
And I think what we try to do with social media, and I'm glad you brought that up, is we try to appear that we're good. So we're more likely to say, no, I'm good.
Hmm.
Even through like a message or through a text. If your friend messages you like, hey, I saw you in that post, like, are you all right? Oh yeah, no, I'm good. right? It's this immediate thing of appearing that I'm good. But that's also a sign that no, you're not,
Yeah.
you know? And when I tell people like, pay attention to your friends that are always saying that they're good, because they might not be. And if you're a true friend, and we know that out of 10 people, maybe like one really is, right? If they're a true
Mhm.
friend, they're gonna keep pushing in there, like, no, 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 this is not like you. Because I've seen how you are. And yeah, you have moments where you're sad and you are like, I see your emotion and that's healthy, let it out. But right now, what I'm seeing and what you're saying go, don't go, you know? So if you have that friend or that person in your life, really try to listen to them because they honestly, I think, really care. A lot of other people would just be like, oh, okay, you're good, all right. But that's why, like, if you have that one person that is going to be like, I don't know. Because I do that to my patients. I question them, and always they turn around like, yeah, you're right. It's all this, blah, 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 and then the floodgates open, right?
Yeah.
So you need to, if you care, I think you need to press a little bit more about when you see a friend behaving that way, because I do think social media kind of puts us or pushes us to behave as like we're good because we want to appear that everything is great and perfect.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
life is not. So let's be honest.
Exactly. Yeah, it is a very, I don't know, perfect place. Everyone posts their best self and the best things that are happening to them. And so I love that you're giving the advice of, you know, rely on your friends, the friends that really notice that something is up and are constantly being like, hey, this is not you. What's going on? And that kind of leads me into something we had talked about a little bit before we were recording, which is AI, and how a lot of people are turning towards AI to assist them in healing. And so, what is your opinion kind of on that?
So AI, I think it's a great tool. And I say a tool just like any tool. When I tell my patients that I have many tools in my toolbox, AI is one of my tools. Um,
Mhm.
when the internet came out, I was a kid, or maybe I was in high school. Anyways, but I was a kid.
Mhm.
And a lot of people freaked out. They were like, "Oh my gosh, this is horrible. Now people are gonna have access to like media that they shouldn't have access." Right? A lot of those things happened. There was a lot of people that were
Mhm.
like just completely against it, and a lot of people that were really in favor. But look what we've been able to do with the internet. I mean, you're somewhere a completely different state than me, and we're able to have
Yeah.
a conversation. So there's a lot of positives to these things. The same thing happens with AI. The problem that I'm seeing when it comes to like looking for help and support, AI is still not a human being. And I say that because when I work with my patients and my team, we're all about connecting to the person's soul. AI cannot do that. AI
Mhm.
cannot perceive that I can look at you and sense that maybe you're sweating a little bit, so you're getting nervous. Your pupils are dilating, so you're going into that fight or flight, or your hairs are standing up, or I can actually hug you. And there is so much power in the human touch. So that is a whole other conversation, I think. But we need to remember that AI is still a tool, just like the internet. And another thing that I tell my patients, careful what you put in there when you're looking for information because it's going to spit out to you what you want to hear. I mean, we've heard a lot of recently of these kind of relationships that people are having with an AI uh, chat.
Yeah.
It drives the person to do and think and believe more what they're believing. So there was a recently, I think it was a New York Times or something, that they talked about this guy who was suffering from schizophrenia, and the AI kind of drove him to believe the false beliefs that he was having even more. So it enhanced his false beliefs, which were really unhealthy to the point of him possibly hurting himself. So all that is still not regulated. So we got to be careful.
Mhm.
And then I have also done it where I'm like, let me put in there like, hey, I want to do this and take this medication. And the first thing it tells me, great idea. And I'm like, no, that's not a great
You're like,
idea.
wait a minute.
It's not a great idea. You should not be taking that medication. So I have tested it out. So I always tell patients, listen, research whatever you want. Use ChatGPT or another form of AI. Use Google. But don't use that to self-medicate. Don't use that to diagnose. We're living in
Mhm.
an age where people are self-diagnosing and everyone has a pathology. So I tell patients, no, you know, you don't have generalized anxiety disorder. you just got very nervous in this situation.
Yeah.
Like, and it's okay to feel nervous. The same thing happens when we hear the word toxic, right? Everyone is toxic. No, you just didn't like that person. And you can say that, hey, I didn't like this person, or I didn't like what they said to me. But we have this tendency of making everything a pathology. And I think AI is like enhancing that more in our minds. So I always tell patients,
Hmm.
be careful what you are using and always compare it to a professional. What is a professional telling you? And
Yeah,
you
that's
can make that
so
decision.
important. Yeah, yeah, it like you were saying, it is really the age of self-diagnosing. Like anywhere you go, you see people who are claiming these diagnoses, and it's like you were saying, well, no, it might just be those few situations that kind of made you feel that way, or it might just be that one person that, was making you feel that way and you just don't mesh with them. It is so important to talk to a professional and get a professional's opinion and not just an AI's opinion.
And in mental health, for example, like which has been one of the biggest areas of self-diagnosing. It's like, how do I put this? Like they think that because one thing happened one day, that's it. They meet criteria for that diagnosis. Um, but then they also see as like, I always tell them like, okay, well, did it mess up your ability to function? Did it put you where you are not bathing? You're not taking care of yourself. Like, did that take you all the way to that extreme? That's when you can say it's a pathology. On
Mhm.
top of that, one of the cool things that we have nowadays is ways to confirm that, which is doing certain brain imaging or brain mapping to say, that's not what your brain is telling me in your scan. You probably just had one incident of this thing happening, or maybe several, but not enough for your brain circuitry to behave like if you have depression, anxiety, or PTSD, because we can actually confirm those brain functions. So, I you don't know how many times I've had patients like argue with me, but doctor, I have this. I'm like,
You're like, I promise you,
no,
you
no.
don't.
And even if I show them proof, but what happened? They spend probably months diving into the AI and diving into the Google, telling them you do have it, you do have it, you do have it. But then
Mhm.
now I'm like, no, you don't. No, you don't.
Yeah.
Let's just do this kind of treatment or this other kind of treatment because I think this is going to be enough. So
Mhm.
we still need to rely on the professionals that have been studying, in this case, the brain, um, a lot longer than your 2 months of medical school.
Yeah. I love that because it really is so important. Like you were saying, brain scan compared to Google.
Yeah.
Obviously, the brain scan is going to be much more reliable with that information. So, the next thing I kind of want to touch on, Dr. Hector, is you are a trauma-focused psychiatrist. You were talking to me a little bit about micro traumas and how those can kind of show up in our day. So, for our friends who are listening that don't really know what that is, can you give us a little bit of a description of micro traumas and how they might be showing up in our day?
Sure. So micro traumas, or I sometimes call them like just stress moments, right? Um, first of all, when we hear the word trauma, we immediately think of an assault, right?
Mhm.
A sexual abuse, right? A parent doing something to you or being bullied like extensively, right? Those are what we call big T traumas. Then we have the little t traumas or the micro traumas or the stressors that we have in our day that could be seen as criticism, rejection, the feeling of abandonment from a loved one. Um, those are the most common type of stressors and micro traumas that we really deal with on a daily basis. One of the things that I focus a lot with my patients is the concept of building resilience, right? These micro traumas, what they do is they create little automatic negative beliefs about yourself. Over time, we start believing that. So if someone tells me every day that I'm stupid, over time, I'm going to be actually making a lot of dumb mistakes because I'm going to be thinking that I really am and start behaving that way, right? We've heard of
Mhm.
self-fulfilling prophecy. That's seen all the time. So over time, that just creates chronic stress and maybe what I call medium T traumas, which is like already significant enough to show in symptoms. So we talked about a lot of the stressors that your body can show. You can have hormone imbalances, you can have immune system issues, believe it or not, from false thoughts. We've heard a lot of using affirmations. One of the things that I work with my patients on, let's write your own affirmations. So if you, because there's beautiful ones out there, but they're not yours. They don't come from your negative thoughts. So that's an exercise that I have a lot of my patients do, and that kind of stole it from Dr. Amen. So I tell, we figure out first, like, okay, what are the automatic negative thoughts? What are the ants, right? I'm stupid, I'm ugly, nobody likes me, I can never make friends, right? Those are really common ones. So let's just do one at a time. I'm stupid, right? A lot of people, believe it or not, think that. Like legit, they think I'm stupid, right? And in the
Mhm.
world of comparison, even more. But then I ask them, okay, well, are you really stupid? Like, yes or no? Like 100% of the time, you are dumb as a rock. Let's use that. And they're like, oh, no, 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 no. Ah, okay. So you're not. But the thought of believing that I'm stupid, how does that make you feel? I feel like crap. I'm very negative with myself. I'm more likely to make mistakes because then I start kind of making mistakes and then it confirms that I'm stupid and then I make more and we
Yeah.
snowball. Okay, so now let's think about the opposite. And the opposite, I tell them, it's not that I'm not stupid. That's not the opposite. The opposite is I'm smart, I'm intelligent, I'm capable. That's your affirmation because it came from that negative thought about yourself. So then I tell them, let's write all these affirmations based on the automatic negative thoughts. But when you look at the automatic negative thoughts, you're going to look for the ant pile. What's the common theme of all of them? Most of it is low self esteem and low confidence. Okay, we need to work on confidence. These are all the things I want you to do to improve your confidence. And as simple as every day reading to yourself those affirmations. When the thought comes into your mind, I'm stupid, remember the affirmation. No, I'm not. I'm intelligent. The words that come out of my mouth are very powerful. And you don't know how many people that I've seen, maybe in their 40s and 50s, still remember a phrase that someone told them when they were like 7. And by the way, it was not always apparent because now there's this belief system that parents ruined all of us. No, I think
Yeah.
parents did what they're trying to do, right, with the tools that they had.
Mhm.
But we do tend to remember one of those two phrases from before. And sometimes we have them other phrases in our adulthood that we kind of get stuck. Now, I still don't know why that happens, why some phrases get stuck and some don't. The only thing I can say that I think a lot of that has to do with if that phrase that we got heard today confirms or kind of goes with the ant pile of like all the stuff we knew from before, it gets stuck. I tell people really mindful and careful of what you're telling someone, even in an argument, because they'll get stuck.
Yeah, I love that you brought up the negative self-talk, but also the negative talk towards other people. Because, like you were saying, the power of words and just the power of the tongue really
Yeah.
is something that gets underestimated, especially when it's not just the thoughts that you're putting in your head. Because everybody knows, if you're thinking negative thoughts, that's what your brain is going to cling to. But we don't think about the fact that if you're saying something negative to someone else, even if it's just heat of the moment, you don't mean it, that might stick with them, like you were saying, for years. Some of these people are grown adults now and they have ones from when they were 7 or 8 that still are stuck in their mind. So I love that you brought the attention to the importance of taking a second to think about what you're saying, not only to yourself, but to other people.
Yeah, we I think we over time, if our soul is hurt, um, we're more likely to hurt again. Right? That's also a common thing that happens in trauma, right? The perpetrator usually was abused by someone else. So they're more likely to just repeat the behavior. So if
Mhm.
you are hurt, more likely you're going to hurt others. We need to stop and try really hard to change that pattern because it's really just going to continue this negative talk towards other people. And I don't, I tell patients I don't want to sound all corny and stuff, but because a lot of my younger patients are like, okay, doctor, you want me to be
I'm
nice?
like,
Yeah,
whatever.
I want you to be nice because it's not necessary to be hurtful. It doesn't do anything. All it
Yeah.
does is maybe it increases your ego a little bit, but falsely, because you increase your ego by improving yourself, not by bringing anybody else down. So let's work really hard on not doing that and catch yourself when you're doing it. And then pay attention to how frequently you're doing it. Because that means that chances are there's a wound in your soul that still needs healing, which is why you're doing it more frequently. So let's really pay attention to what's coming out of our mouth because, yes, there's a lot of power in our words.
Yeah, you explain that beautifully. So, Dr. Hector, there is one more thing I want to kind of touch on in this episode, and it is the white butterfly and just kind of what that consists of. I know you also have the White Butterfly magazine, and you have different issues that cover topics such as negative self-talk or having a curious mindset with healing. So, give us a little overview of what the white butterfly is and kind of why you created it.
Sure. So the white butterfly, it actually came from several years ago. I went to Paris, and I'm so excited because I'm going again now in October, and I'm going to
Oh,
go to
fun.
a statue. So there was a statue at the Louvre, which is Cupid kissing a girl, and I think it's the one that is known for Cupid's kiss, if I'm not mistaken. So he's kissing this girl, and I just really got fascinated with it. And I went home. I'm a big like Greek mythology nerd. Like I love reading those stories and all that stuff. And it turns out that the girl, her name is Psyche. And then the more I read about her and the book that there is about the love story between Cupid and Psyche, um, I learned that she's also called the white butterfly. Well, the word psyche means soul, and the word psychiatry is the medical treatment of the soul. So to me, I was like, okay, this is the no-brainer. This is going to be the name of my practice, the white butterfly,
Yeah.
because I think it goes perfect with what I believe, but then also it's where the word psychiatry comes from. There's a lot
Hmm.
of negative beliefs about the word psychiatry and like, oh, it's scary because we're the ones that put people away in the hospital, which that doesn't happen. That's only a movie, which I can't wait for them to stop doing that. I watch movies and I cringe when I see that. I'm like, we don't do that.
Yeah, you're like, wait.
So that's where the word white butterfly comes from, and how we named the clinic the White Butterfly Clinic. Um, from there, I came up with the White Butterfly Journal, which this year we launched our first issue. Every issue is a different quality and personality trait that I think we need to focus on. Mental health, we focus a lot on pathology, on symptoms, where I think we need to start working on building the soul of the individual, um, and working on things like curiosity, humor, the connection. So I have literally an issue for one of those, and there's wonderful stories and different articles written about how curiosity, for example, shows up in our brain and how it enhances certain chemicals in our brain that makes us feel good when we're just sitting thinking and being curious about things. So I focused a lot on that. And then from there, I came up with the White Butterfly Healing Society, which is basically a group of people that I invite to do, certain things. If we're doing like a retreat or a webinar, for them to continue to have that feeling of community and connection. At the end of the day, what I try to do is try and shift how we are doing mental health, in our health system. And I think we need to focus more on the healing of the soul, which is why you probably heard me saying a lot about that and the wounds that we have, and as opposed to just paying attention to what is the anxiety. Usually, that anxiety is coming because there's a wound in your soul that is causing
Yeah.
this symptom. So that's basically the story behind the white butterfly and why I went there, and it kind of took me there. I didn't think I was looking for it.
Yeah, I love how it came from one of your other interests, something that also is like very important in your life, like the study of Greek mythology and how you were able to be like, wait, this literally aligns with what I'm going into right now. How crazy is that? So I love that you focus so much on the soul and being soul driven and soul led because like you were saying, I feel like that is the basis of mental health. And it's kind of gotten lost in the process through how people view it, like you were saying in movies and just how it's portrayed. But really, at the end of the day, that's all it really is. So I love that you've been able to create a community and just almost like a safe space for people to go and find other individuals who are also trying to kind of rediscover their soul and rediscover, who am I and what am I here to do?
I always tell my patients, listen, we all have a soul, and how it's doing, whether if it's all caught up with wounds or healing or still has some band-aids over those wounds and they haven't really healed. We all have that, and how that is doing is how your life is going to be doing, because it's what's going to come out of your mouth, what you're going to do, where you're going to, you know, desire to connect with someone. We hear a lot about, oh, I vibe with this person. Yeah, most likely that person's soul is doing pretty good.
Yeah.
take care of themselves, right? So when we focus on self healing of our soul, we just attract people. Like it just happens, right? But if there's some people that you're just kind of like, I want to stay away from this person, right? Or I don't know, they're mean or they're a little bit more irritable. Chances are there's wounds in there that they haven't healed. Most of the time,
Mhm.
that's the case. Whenever I have someone that comes over and they're really irritable and upset, my staff is like, "Oh my gosh, this person!" I'm like, they're hurting from something. They're just showing it like that. So cut them some slack, give them some grace because they're really hurting. And most of the time, that's the case. So I focus a lot on that, and I try to teach my staff to be receptive and sensitive when you see someone like that, and don't marginalize them. Don't push them aside.
Yeah, that's such a refreshing mindset on it because, like you were saying, I think people are quick to judge and quick to put labels like, oh, they're toxic or oh, they're a bad person. But, like you were saying, most of the time, the people who are having their negative traits out the most are the people who are struggling on the inside the most. So, it is so important to have grace and understanding and patience with the people that maybe you feel a little antsy towards, or maybe a little bit of clash towards because you never know what is going on inside their mind.
That's you nailed it.
Thank you, Dr. Hector, for joining us today. This conversation was amazing. I learned so much, and I love the theme that you kind of focus on because I talk on this podcast so much about the importance of self-talk, the importance of the soul, how if you are in tune with yourself, you will be magnetic to people. And you just literally put the science backing it and the studies backing it. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me, and I love having the conversation. And at the end of the day, I try to, you know, educate and at the same time give us a little bit of window of let's be a little bit more kind to that person that we might have pushed aside because we don't they seem to be mean or irritable. I tell them, chill out, hold on, they're hurting. So if anything, you should go and reach out to that person in a different energy.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, exactly. Taking it as an invitation to be a friend or be someone that they can rely on for sure. Thank you, Hector, for joining us. I will have the White Butterfly website in the description, the magazine in the description, also the society. So if you guys feel kind of drawn towards that, you can definitely go and check it out. And I will see you guys next week.